Hello, 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 Cozy Cosmos crew. I am recording this on Friday, May the 3rd, and I've thrown up the time clock here, which is always kind of interesting just to contemplate as I'm doing this forecast. And I've kind of been thinking about the energies that we're experiencing. And two of the library books that I'm currently reading. So I'm reading Rest is Resistance, a Manifesto by Trisha Hearsay. And I'm also reading a book called Punished by Rewards. And I might talk about that after, but I wanted to read you a quick quote here to start our conversation. And part one in this book is called Rest, and it says, "Every shut eye ain't ain't sleep. Every shut eye ain't sleep. I'm resting my eyes. I'm listening." Aura Caston, my maternal grandmother. And this book is about, it talks about social and political movements using rest as resistance, about our such, patriarchal outward world that focuses on productivity and pushes us to do more, and how rest is actually resisting some of that and moving towards the energy of empowering ourselves and knowing that we can't just keep pushing. And I've been thinking about that energy a lot. That energy is Taurus energy. Taurus knows when to slow down. Taurus knows when to appreciate the blooms, when to allow and lean into what is going on right in front of us. And when I look to the sky and see all of this energy in Pisces, Aries, and Taurus, right? We can't see much else. The fact that Pluto just stationed retrograde in Aquarius there, and it has been, all of the energy in Taurus has squared that Pluto over the last couple of weeks. We have this Pluto square energy. And so as we deepen into these pieces, I do want to bring up rest as resistance, okay? And to think about how we might be able to slow down, how we might be able to breathe into a bit of a lull. And if that lull is not occurring for you, to also know that we can become grounded even when things are, out of our control and super busy, or we can ground into things in a way that makes sense for us. So I want you to think about, and we're almost halfway into Taurus season. We can see the sun there at 13 degrees. We are in this energy. We have Venus here, we have Jupiter here, we have Uranus here, but we're in a disseminating moon. The moon will be new again this week. And so we're going to be planting some seeds here and hopefully appreciating and cultivating the blooms that are already happening in our chart. So I'm going to give you a couple of things to journal on, specifically thinking about Taurus season as that grounded energy. How can we pursue what we want without getting lost? We have to be grounded in self in order to do that. So in what ways are you and can you become more grounded? And as energy maybe slows down and we feel into and live a bit more in the moment, I think for me, Taurus season, this happens because it rains and it smells so beautiful. The flowers are blooming, and we, visually, sensually, like in our senses, we have to be in the moment a little bit more. So this slows down a tiny bit, which part of our life haven't we maybe been fully present to? And how can we work on changing that? And we might see this in our chart. We might take a look, and it's Taurus season. So I have been very, very focused. Jupiter, Uranus in the first house in Taurus on my physical body. How has that hurt my relationships, right? First house, seventh house. So think about your axis of Taurus and Scorpio, and maybe you've had some illumination of what has been lacking. How can we be more present to the parts that maybe are lacking a little bit in our life? And when we think about the senses, when we think about ourselves as sensual beings and experiencing our life through these senses, how can we use these to learn? You know, a lot of moms do that with their kids. We make these sensory buckets. How can we do that in our life? And this could be as simple as pulling out your essential oils that you love. This could be, you know, going out and foraging for herbs. This could come in many different ways, but I want you, and you know, maybe this is just literally you buying yourself flowers this week. And when we think about that physical world that is all around us, when we think about how much beauty exists in this world that sometimes we don't, you know, the magnolia trees are blooming, um, everything is starting to become green, hopefully. So, in what ways can we acknowledge our own beauty and the beauty that is all around us on a daily level? And deepening into the Taurian energy, Taurus is ruled by Venus. Venus is in Taurus in its home. You know, we feel like we have more of what we need, hopefully, with that energy. What do you value? How have you maybe gotten out of sync of what you value? And how can we correct that this month? So, great exercise if you want to dive deeper into that. What are your top 5 things that you value? And confidence can show up in many different ways. And confidence allows us to do things, maybe even though we never thought that we could. So, what blocks do you maybe need to work on this month to improve your confidence? When we think about that in the realms of the Taurian energy, you know, maybe it's very body somatic. I'm going to flip us ahead here to Sunday, May the 5th. And this is a little bit of a different look of the chart. This is a full astrology chart with the aspect table. Over here, we see the elements. We see where each planetary, you know, what segment it's in, what zodiac sign, what house. And I really like seeing it in this view because we can look here and see um, elementally we have more earth. So there's quite a lot in Aries still here too, but each one being based on a point system. The rising sign for this chart is in Virgo, so that plays into it. But look at those modes. They're quite represented because they're all in that tight knit. We have mutable, cardinal, and fixed. But something that really is interesting here that I want you to pay attention to. Now, this is based on the rising sign. So this lump of 12 points will switch depending on what rising sign is there. But when we think about this energy, and I'm going to pull up the chart for the actual full new moon in Taurus, that wherever this is landing in your chart brings those 12 points into that part of your chart. So for me, this is the first quadrant. I'm a Taurus rising, so this is happening in the fourth quadrant going into the first quadrant. So that is going to give a very different experience than if this is happening, say, in your fourth, fifth, and sixth house. So just thinking of where all of that concentrated energy is. And we start Sunday, we can see that the moon is in Aries and it contacts in the afternoon there the North Node. And so this might be bringing up themes around who am I? What am I doing here? What is my destiny? Right. And as the moon moves on, we can see that we start Monday with the moon having just contacted Chiron and going into that last part, that last decan of Aries. And it's getting ready. We won't have that new moon until Tuesday, but on Monday, it will go into Taurus. So we start the week with a bit of fire, a bit of wounding, a bit of destiny or dharma, or over the weekend, we may have been feeling that. And late, sorry, not late, but quite into the evening, the moon moves into Taurus, and Monday feels like there feels like this energy around the physical body. If you've been having some lessons, you might have them become louder. I think a lot of people maybe are getting sick because there is this ask of really reflecting and seeing how maybe our emotions, how what we've been holding on to needs to be released and let go. When we think about the energy of Taurus, the opposite energy, which we had that full moon in Scorpio is really about elimination, about purging. And so there can be this feeling here for me with the moon entering Taurus. Monday might be a day where it's like, oh my God, I see my vices. Oh my goodness, I see where things are. I see where things are deepening that maybe have gotten out of control. And this brings me to my next book that I talked about at the beginning here. This is Punished by Rewards. And the concept of this book is the trouble with gold stars, incentive plans, A's, praise, and other bribes. And as someone who has struggled with eating disorders, as someone who food has been a large reward in my family growing up, and also, I've really imparted this in my kids. The premise of the book is not necessarily that reward is bad, but that it maybe isn't getting the exact thing that we need, the point that we need across, and that because people just so easily give rewards. I'm going to just read this to you because I feel like it made so much sense to me when I read this, and it talks about the legacy of behaviorism. But there's a time to admire the grace and persuasive power of an influential idea, and there is a time to fear its hold over us. The time to worry is when the idea is so widely shared that we no longer even notice it, when it is so deeply rooted that it feels to us like plain common sense. At the point when objections are not answered anymore because they're no longer even raised, we are not in control. We do not have the idea, it has us. This book is about an idea that has attained such a status in our society. The idea is that the best way to get something done is to provide a reward to people when they act the way we want them to. Scholars have debated the meaning and traced the development of the intellectual tradition known as behaviorism. What interests me, though, is the popular or pop incarnation of this doctrine, the version that lives in our collective consciousness and affects what we do every day. The core of this behaviorism is do this and you'll get that. The wisdom of this technique is very rarely held up for inspection. All that is open to question is what exactly people will receive, and under the circumstances, it will be promised and delivered. We take for granted that this is the logical way to raise children, teach students, and manage employees. We promise bubblegum to a 5-year-old if he'll keep quiet in the supermarket. We dangle an A before a teenager to get her to study harder. We hold out the possibility of a Hawaiian vacation for a salesman who sells enough of a company's product. It will not take any more than a few paragraphs to make the case that we are deeply committed to this way of thinking and behaving. So I want you to consider this in your life, in your chart, in your relationship to your kids. I'm really seeing as a Taurus rising, I value material goods and that I've imparted that on my children and that they're spoiled rotten and they expect something and they think that if they don't get something that they are not loved. It's a really tough pill to swallow when I am an extremely loving person that has told them, many times outside of getting a physical thing, how much I love them, but they don't necessarily feel it in the same way. Behaviorism. And this goes for ourselves too. This is something I've been exploring as someone who has been working out very hard in the gym 4 days a week, swimming 5 days a week. My reward system for working out that much has been candy. And I justify it because I'm working out so hard. And in some ways, it's like, okay, it's okay. And we have to ask the questions. We have to get curious and we have to think about this in our lives. So let us move ahead to the moment of the new moon that is occurring on Tuesday, May 7th. And this is happening at 18 degrees of Taurus. I'm just going to 18 degrees and 2 minutes. So we're going to go ahead. I'm going to go behind. I want that exact moment. And isn't it interesting to see the ascendant at 26 Scorpio? Which this is like exactly opposite my chart. My rising sign is 26 Taurus. So when we look at this chart, look at all of that magnanimous energy in the Taurian part of your chart and think about what house that is for you. You can go into Cozy Cosmos and there is a Taurus Scorpio access by rising sign. If you're not certain, you can always post and we will respond to you. And this is an energy that feels really quite powerful. We can see Venus here leading the charge in the most early degrees of Taurus, and Jupiter is pulling up the tail there. And we have Uranus who could bring us some shocking surprises as well. And then we have the sun and the moon, right? That is what happens when there is a new moon. They come together. This is the start of the lunar cycle. And so what are you starting in that Taurus part of your chart? But we can't forget that we just had 2 weeks ago that full moon in Scorpio. And I find it really interesting for where I am that Scorpio is on the horizon there. Scorpio Taurus is being highlighted. This means that this is just, as the sun is going down, there will still probably be light in the sky. But we can see the horizon here. And as all the seventh house is this energy of setting and going home and really leaning into, like when we go home, we let our hair down, we take off our bra, we do all of these things. Keep seeing this funny meme about like my family gets to decide whether they bury me with a bra on, and if you do that, I'll be so upset, I'll haunt you kind of thing. It feels very Taurus, Scorpio access. And I'm just here to say, Tamara, make sure that they put me in my sports bra because I always am wearing it. And I feel the exact opposite way. So this new moon is here to ask us, what are the creature comforts that we love? How can we lean into practicality? How can we allow some awakening and integration from this past eclipse season? This energy is fertile and it's very abundant. That Jupiter and Venus, they are the benefics, right? So having them be blessed and co-present with this lunation feels really supportive, feels quite intuitive, and maybe even bringing some surprising or dramatic attention. This is what we call a bundle chart pattern. And it's interesting to think about that concentration in Aries and in Taurus. We have some of that energy there as well. It won't let me open that up. So I think about, you know, because of the Aries energy, this feels like a more initiating or um, beginning new moon, but Taurus energy likes to sustain. It wants the secure, stable, consistent ways. And I do find it really interesting that Jupiter is also all of this week will be with the demon star Algol. And I bring this up because I know Algol quite prolifically. Algol is a fixed star that is related to Medusa. And so remembering this month, this week, to not lose your head, remembering this week that there might be some divine or sacred feminine rage that comes up. The story of Medusa is that she was actually raped and then was punished. And they used her head as a weapon that would turn others to stone. And so there is this energy here for me around expansion of, and I can see it so deeply in our collective, actually. Like there is a lot of conversation happening around alcohol and whether it's safe, whether it's good for you. I mean, that conversation has been going on for a while, but it seems to be ramping up even bigger. And there is this energy here for me around maybe we'll see something on a global scale around alcohol. Yeah, Algol being, you know, I once had an astrologer say to me it can kind of relate to the way that we might be off with our own heads. And that's pretty much what happens when you drink too much alcohol. So this new moon and being so close to Uranus, I do want to think about, you know, unexpected events, feelings of awakenings, surprises. I also think of like even reversals of stuff that has happened. And it's like, oh no, all of a sudden it's going back this way. Earth and water, Scorpio, Taurus, yin, feminine energy, but earth and water are the energies of fertility. And so, how can we build and use that fertility for the good, right? We have this huge stellium. I think of babies being born right now, this huge stellium in fixed earth. They'll be very, you know, any babies born now, very practical, very grounded, very stable. You know, that fertile energy will be a part of who they are. And it is, you know, in a lot of cases, Taurus energy is slow and sensual and pleasure filled, pleasure seeking, even. There is on the downside, Taurus energy can be possessive and very stubborn and sometimes lazy. I've been considering my own laziness with this energy, and how that bull often has a hard time getting going. But once it does, and once it throws its energy behind something, that it really can move almost mountains. So how can we use this to our advantage? And knowing that the moment of the new moon, which is exact at 8:21 p.m. Pacific time. So we have up here 9:22. Sometimes the software doesn't fully line up to the second, but there is this energy here for me around how do we sustain things in our life? How do we get lazy? How do we, maybe breed some stubbornness that is hurting us also? Okay. Very juicy. It's also quite interesting that we don't have many other aspects this week. The Sun and Saturn will sextile at 17 degrees on May 6th, which is the Monday. And that is one of the only other aspects. Now, the moon obviously makes a bunch more aspects there. Also, Mercury doesn't get out of its retrograde until May 13th. Sorry, not its. Wow. Well, if that's not a sign, I don't know what is. So pay attention to Mercury this week. Mercury doesn't get out of its shadow. It's done being retrograde, but it's still in its shadow until May 13th. So I really want you to think about that Mercury story that's been percolating, and Mercury in that Aries part of your chart. It's been there for a while, and it's going to move on. It actually moves into Taurus May 15th. That's, in a further week, but I want to bring that up because it will be a bit of a story here. Remembering that the Taurus new moon, Taurus is ruled by Venus. Venus is in Taurus. This is a powerful, prominent placement. And so this is a good moon to manifest with. Using that energy feels really powerful, really good. Now, the one last thing I want to do before I go, we're going to talk about Saturn, because Saturn this week is moving into, or sorry, it actually is doing it tomorrow. So today is Friday, May 3rd. On Saturday, May the 4th, Saturn, who has been in the gate of doubt in human design, gate 63, is moving from gate 63, the gate of doubt, into gate 22. And I want to read this to you because this is a huge shift. And it will be in gate 22 until August. Yeah, until August 25th, where it will go back into the gate of doubt because of the retrograde that is happening. So this is major, major, major. Okay. And gate 63, the gate of doubt in traditional human design, actually in the quantum human design, they talk about it as the gate of curiosity. The ability to use questioning and curiosity to simulate dreams of new possibilities and potentials, thoughts that inspire the question of what needs to happen to make an idea a reality. Okay. And in unbalanced expression, doubt, especially self-doubt, that leads to suspicion and the struggle for certainty, the unwillingness to question an old idea, the loss of curiosity. And holy shiitake, have I been feeling that. And remember, Saturn is in Pisces in your chart, so layer that with where that's happening for you. But as it's shifting and moving into gate 22, my, oh my, what is this energy that we get to experience? Well, gate 22 in traditional human design is actually the gate of grace. Okay. The grace to know that you are fully supported by the universal flow of abundance and to pursue your passion and your unique contribution to the world, no matter what. To trust that you will be given what you need when you need it in order to make your unique contribution to the world. Unbalanced expression is fear that you are not supported. holding back or stifling your passion because you think you can't afford to pursue it. And this to me is just so juicy. Saturn moving into gate 22, grace, like we're moving from doubt into grace. We are moving into a piece of trust, of knowing we're supported, of feeling into that divine supportive energy. So, where are you or have you been denying your passions in life? Powerful, powerful, powerful stuff. And as we make that shift, as Saturn makes that shift, it is interesting to think about that it's moving from a head center energy into the solar plexus. Okay. Very, 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 very different. What have you been doubting, and how can we move that into a place of beauty, into a place of grace, into a place of trust? I am sending you so much love this week. Deepen your grounding practices. Ground, ground, ground into the body, and go with love, my friends. Sending you so much love. Bye for now.